ready?
Yes.
Ready? Okay. Good evening. Welcome to tonight's Geneva City School Board of Education meeting, July 19th. We have roll call, please.
Mr. Arndt.
Present.
Ms. Fisher.
Here.
Mrs. Metzler.
Here.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon.
Here.
And Mrs. Ortiz.
Present. Have a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Arndt.
Yes.
Ms. Fisher.
Yes.
Mrs. Metzler.
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon.
Yes.
And Mrs. Ortiz.
Yes. Are we in compliance?
Yes, we are.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, we would like to have a moment of silence for the loss in the Lambert family and let Keegan and his family know that we offer our condolences and have them in our thoughts. Thank you. Moving on to correspondence, I did receive a few emails that were either addressed by myself or directed to the appropriate personnel to address.
Did you have any correspondence? Okay. Agenda modifications.
Yes, there is a removal of H. The old I through O will now be H through N. There is a change to 11, a new 14, also a new 15D. The old 14D is now 15E. There's an addition to 15E. And lastly, the old 14, 15, 16, and 17 will now be the 15, 16, 17, and 18.
Thank you. A motion to approve the minutes.
I'll move.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Ms. Fisher.
Yes.
Mrs. Metzler.
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon.
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz.
Yes.
And Mr. Arndt.
Yes.
A motion to approve the treasurer's financial report.
So moved. Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Mrs. Metzler.
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon.
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz.
Yes.
Mr. Arndt.
Yes.
And Ms. Fisher.
Yes.
A motion to approve the invoices.
I'll move.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Mrs. Milliken Dixon.
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz.
Yes.
Mr. Arndt.
Yes.
Ms. Fisher.
Yes.
And Mrs. Metzler.
Yes.
We have the informational items for the current investments that's attached. And now we move to the legislative report.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Ortiz. Excuse me. Our legislature's been busy since the passing of the budget on July 4th. So it was signed by Governor DeWine early hours of July 4th, 23. This came after the House and Senate Conference Committee members settled many of their differences on deadline day. Some notable portions of the House bill are as follows. The budget continues to roll out the Fair School Funding Plan. We heard about that a couple of months ago from Mr. Patterson and Mr. Cupp. Changes to the State Board of Education were kept in the final version. This partially elected State Board of Education is to be stripped of all but its regulatory powers and will no longer be acting in any significant way on behalf of the citizens they represent across Ohio. The major policymaking powers previously held by the SBOE will be given to a cabinet-level agency and named the Ohio Department of Education and Workforce. We've been talking about this for a year or more, I guess. So it was in the budget and did pass, and so we're going to disband the Board of Education and replace it with the Department of Education and Workforce that are cabinet positions appointed versus elected. Ed Choice voucher expansion was kept in the final form and is budgeted to cost Ohio taxpayers an additional $825 million compared to what is currently being spent on vouchers. The budget uses FY22 data for the base cost inputs, maintains the capacity calculation as designed, increases the minimum state share percentage for districts, and includes the funding for a comprehensive study on the needs of economically disadvantaged students. The budget amends the mandatory student retention under the law known as the third grade reading guarantee to permit a student to be promoted to the fourth grade if the student's parent or guardian consults with the student's reading teacher and principal and they agree to the student's promotion, regardless of whether the student is at reading level, and requires the student to continue receiving reading intervention services until the student reads at grade level. It requires the ODE to Ohio Department of Education. So I'll be referring to the Department of Education still because it's still a thing. It's not quite disbanded yet. So they're not quite interchangeable, but sometimes they are. So if you have any questions about that, please feel free to shoot me an email. Okay, so the budget requires the ODE to provide reimbursements to make school breakfast and lunch free for all students who are eligible for reduced price meals. That's a big piece of the budget that's going to sort of erase reduced lunch, and you either qualify for free lunch or you don't, and that'll be the line that we draw. It increases the new teacher base salary to $35,000 and adjusts the step teacher salary schedule accordingly. It requires all sports gaming revenue to be used to support public and non-public education for students K to 12. It requires each school district to provide free feminine hygiene products to girls enrolled in grades 6 through 12. It requires schools to accept cash at athletic and school events, with a limited exception for an event at a public facility that is leased by a professional sports team or a privately owned facility. So actually my question for you, Mr. Lillie, is that us? Are we exempted?
That would be a qualifier for us to be
Right.
exempt, yes.
Okay. So it would apply to places that have their own
Or
facility
games played at Spire,
Or ga-
not for anything played here.
and played here.
Yeah.
So we'll have to continue to accept cash payments. A lot of people were changing to digital payments and things, especially during COVID. And the budget specifically outlines that you also must accept cash for school events. OSBA, BASA, and OASBO, those are the groups. They are the school board, the Ohio School Board groups. They sent a letter to Governor DeWine requesting line item vetoes on the voucher expansion, changing ODE to OWE, and the cash payments for events, just FYI. That's all about the budget that was, I thought, pertinent. So again, if you have any questions, it's, I don't know, a 500-page document or something. So let us know. The Senate unanimously passed Senate Bill 91. This bill will make changes to laws regarding fraud, waste, and abuse of public funds. So that'll be the accounting department's concern to worry about. We've had some recently introduced legislation. House Bill 240 permits public schools to employ chaplains to provide support services. HB 206 relates to the expulsion of a student from a public school for actions that endanger the health and safety of other students or school employees. HB 211 would require a public body to permit members of the public to comment or testify about matters of public concern before the public body at its public meeting, and name this act the Free to Speak Act. HB 214 would require each public school to adopt a policy regarding certain expectations related to the performance of staff member professional duties. HB 216 would require the Department of Education, or the new department, depending on when, if it passes, sorry, I lost my place, to develop a process for requesting an investigation of a school's compliance with its own policies prohibiting harassment, intimidation, and bullying. HB 219 regards changes to the College Credit Plus program. HB 235, sponsored by our own Sarah Arthur Fowler, would make changes regarding membership and selection of SBOE members, in line with the transition to the OWE. So Ms. Fowler was one of the representatives, charged with helping the transition between the ODE and the OEW. The Primary and Secondary Education Committee activity, they did a bunch of things also. They discussed HB 63. It was amended and would require public and chartered non-public schools to provide conflict resolution instructions to students in grades K through 12. The amendment requires ODE, or in the future, to compile a list of appropriate curricula and materials for conflict resolution instruction that includes at least one curriculum or material pertaining to each required conflict resolution topic. I apologize. The amendment also requires the ODE to issue guidance to aid school districts and schools in selecting in-service training programs for teachers on providing the required conflict resolution curriculum. I don't know why I can't say that. Tongue twister. And again, please contact your elected officials. I have all of their phone numbers if you would like any further information. Thank you all.
Thank you. That brings us to the ATEC report.
Yes, this past month, more students that graduated in June were awarded certification. 8 students earned the State Nurses Aid certification from the Ohio Board of Nursing. 3 students passed the State of Ohio Cosmetology Board exam, and 5 more students passed the Ashtabula County Electrical License exam. Sophomore Information Day is quickly approaching. Students will pick up their student packets and get their photo ID pictures taken on August 6th. The end of June is gone and no word yet on the possible funding for additions to the facilities. This money was earmarked in the budget and is supposed to be fast-tracked to construction, for construction to begin in July. However, it seems the state was a bit optimistic about the timetable, and they're now saying it will take about 2 months to make their decisions on the funding allocations. On August 8th, there will be a commencement ceremony for the new LPN graduates, and on August 29th, the RN students will have their ceremony. That's it.
Thank you.
Our Director of Food Services, Laura Jones, will be giving a summary of the 2022-2023 food service operation, along with a look at the plans for the upcoming school year.
Hello. Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So this was the first year back to semi-normal after 2 years of everybody eats for free. So after 2 years of universal free breakfast, free lunch, we finally got back to having a normal school year, no hybrid, no packed lunches, and it was wonderful. So with that, our lunch receipts were up since we were actually charging students for lunch. However, the drawback to that was for the first and second graders, that was their first time coming back to school where they actually had to pay for lunch. So that was a little confusing, and we were having trouble getting people to fill out free and reduced lunch forms in the beginning, but eventually they came around, and with the online application, that seemed to help as well. So our lunch receipts were up, our a la carte receipts were up, breakfast receipts were up, adult receipts were up. Our other receipts were up. We received the supply chain assistance again, and I think by the look on Kevin's face, I put it in the wrong place. But anyway, we did receive a lot of donations. We have a very generous community that donated money to help the students that had negative balances to help pay off some of those as well. Our government reimbursement was in transit, but after we receive the money in July, if we apply it to the last year, then we would kind of be a little higher. The drawback to taking away the universal free breakfast and lunch is when they take that away, they lowered the reimbursement, and we still had extra reimbursement funding this year, but they are taking that away next year. However, even though they are taking that away, as you had mentioned, that they are reduced, students that had previously qualified for reduced price meals will now be considered free. So hopefully that will encourage more of those students to actually fill out applications so they would be free as well. So when you look at our expenses, our labor costs were up slightly, but our food costs were down. So you think, gosh, I go to the grocery store and my bill is astronomical compared to what it had been in the past. So why is the food cost down? The food cost is down because the number of lunches we were serving is down. Because when people have to start paying for the lunches, and you might have 2 or 3 kids that want to eat lunch that week, you're not going to buy lunch as often as you would have if you were receiving free breakfast and free lunch. So with that, our lunch count was down, so our food cost was down. Our supply and repair cost was up, but we were fixing quite a bit of things this year. And our other costs were relatively stable. So if you count the money in transit, we are looking at a nice balance for a change. And with that, we are purchasing new computers for the cafeterias. Some of your students may have come home and told you that the computers get hung up because they were a little outdated. They were from an old equipment grant that we had, and they were slowing down. So we did purchase new computers that we hope to be putting in each of the cafeteria serving lines over the summer. Then, looking at all the fun things we did this year, we did some of our promotional days. We did a dino day where all the little elementary kids got tiny little dinosaurs. We had dinosaurs on the menu. We had new food days. We promoted wellness through the new menus and with the wellness committee. We encouraged our parents to complete those online applications, hoping to support the Title I funding. We continue to work with the staff. So we have almost half of our food service staff right now certified in Serve Safe and the Ohio Food Safety Certification. And we have those people in every single kitchen. So we are doing the best we can to serve the healthiest, safest food possible to your children. Also, we continue to monitor and record our cafeteria staff training hours so that we're in compliance with the USDA professional standards. And this year for our Christmas bike giveaway, we had the addition of Mrs. Claus, which was a big hit. So the students really enjoyed. Once again, every year, the food service staff wears jeans on Friday, and they donate $1. And that $1 goes toward purchasing bikes and helmets for each elementary school. And then we do 12 days of Lucky Tray Christmas, and Santa and Mrs. Claus come around to the building and pass those out to the lucky winners. So that's always a big hit.
Laura, for the record, Mr. Claus was the hit. The children knocked me over to get to him.
That's how they are. You know, what are you going to do? This year, we were also awarded an equipment grant for over $56,000. So we are going to purchase new dish machines for Austinburg Elementary School, Geneva Platter Spencer Elementary School, and we are replacing a refrigerator at the middle school. So those were much needed and very appreciative for that equipment grant from the government. We also received the supply chain assistance and a PEBT administrative cost reimbursement for over $3,000. So next year, I'm going to be turning this department over to a very competent, excellent professional, Michelle, and she is going to take over, which will be wonderful because the staff basically runs the department with the support of the director. Also, direct certification, which we do every year. So students that receive SNAP or Ohio Works First, basically food stamps, they automatically qualify for free meals through this direct certification. This year, they're adding the Medicaid people. So anyone that also receives Medicaid will also be in that group of directly certified people that do not have to fill out an application. Hopefully, if we get it all done, we'll be able to send everyone letters that pre-qualifies that it's directly certified, so they won't have to fill out an application. But that's new this year, and hopefully that will also help increase the number of students that are receiving free breakfast and free lunch. Any questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
On the staff serve safe certified and the Ohio Food Safety certification, you said half of the staff are certified and some in every kitchen. Is the goal to have everyone certified, or is it good enough just to have half?
The qualification is to have one person in each kitchen, so the person in charge, basically. So we're just overachievers. We're above and beyond. And it's very important because suppose the one person in that kitchen that's taken the class and has the certification in food safety is off. We train everyone else, even if they're not certified, that they know to take all the temperatures on the food, to keep everything in the safety zone, to make sure the hot food is hot, the cold food stays cold, to rotate. We also have HACCP procedures in place, which is the hazardous analysis of critical control points. That's another like food service kind of thing. All of the staff is trained in that as well. And they're also trained in the Heimlich maneuver every year and CPR every 2 years. So we do our best to look out for our little people, well, and our bigger people
Right.
too.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Thank you very much.
Great. Well, thank all
Thank
of
you.
you.
And
Thank you.
thank you, Mrs. Jones, for your time.
So I have some items on my report as well. Just to circle back around and provide clarification on the resolution that was on last month's agenda regarding the reduction in force. There are no current teachers' employment contracts impacted by this. So I just wanted to provide that clarification. Some summer projects that have been happening and are going on around the district. Wilkinson Paving started work at the bottom of the hill at the high school here this week. So hopefully you saw, we posted it on social media that the east entrance has been blocked off until they're finished. So anyone coming to the high school will need to use the main entrance. They're going to be seal coating the parking lot, crack filling where is needed, and repainting all the lines. And then there's a curve out front, kind of near the bottom of the sledding hill, that they're going to add some pavement to widen that for the buses. They should be done with their work by the end of the month. And as they move to different sections, should other areas be impacted that we have to close, and look for additional communication to go out on that as well. On Monday next week, we have our two new doors that we purchased for the high school are going to be installed at each end of the 400 hallway. So that's exciting. We just finished. Hopefully you see the difference in the auditorium. All of the LED lights have been installed, so I think it's much brighter in here. The gym floor at the middle school has been done this year, and it looks absolutely wonderful. So that was nice to see. All three of our elementary buildings will be getting mulch, and we are looking at what the best option is to address a drainage issue at Cork that has been washing the mulch away. So we'll be addressing that drainage issue at Cork. 2 of our new buses arrived today, so hopefully you saw, we posted pictures of that. We're very excited to get 2 new buses. And additionally, we have 23 ready to go for back to school, with the 24th one getting finished at the shop. So of those remaining 5 that are in our fleet of 29, 2 have to be moved to out of service to fulfill the requirements of the grant that we received, and the remaining 3 have been deemed probably too costly to fix at this point. So we'll be looking to purchase a few more buses to replace those as well. I'm just going to briefly touch on a couple points that haven't been touched on already in regards to House Bill 33, because there are numerous changes to the third grade reading guarantee. And it kind of went back to this current 22-23 school year. So any district that would have retained students who didn't meet the promotion score on the third grade state ELA test during, again, this past school year that just ended, the 22-23 school year, have to promote those students to fourth grade unless the student's parent or guardian requests otherwise. And I think, as was mentioned, those students have to be they have to continue to receive at least 90 minutes of reading instruction that includes intensive intervention until that student is able to read on grade level. Starting with the 23-24 school year, in regards to the third grade reading guarantee, state law requires that the state board annually increases the promotion score on the test for third grade English language arts until it reaches proficiency, which is 700 for the 24-25 school year. So for this coming 23-24 school year, that score for promotion has been raised to 690. So just as a reference point, this year it was 685, so they've increased it to 690. Another way that a student can get promoted to fourth grade is by the reading subscore on the English language arts test. That also is being raised by the state. So this past year it was 47. This coming school year, that will get raised to 48. So any student who scores 48 or higher on the reading subsection, even if they don't get an overall score of 690 or above, would still be eligible for promotion to fourth grade at the end of the 23-24 school year. There are some additional changes. I'm not going to go through all of them, but they do include a parent request exemption, as was briefly mentioned. There are new parent notification requirements that districts will have to put out to parents, as well as additional RIMP requirements. We're going to see students on RIMPs, which are reading improvement and monitoring plans. Previously, students in kindergarten through third grade who were found to be not on track would need to be put on a reading improvement or monitoring plan, or what has been known as a RIMP. And that will extend now with students being able to be promoted to fourth grade. If they didn't meet the promotion score, they will still need to be on a RIMP, be it fourth, fifth, or whatever grade, until they're deemed to be back reading on grade level. So that's another change that's coming with the reading guarantee. Just as a reminder, the Ohio sales tax holiday this year will be August 4th through the 6th, so hopefully people take advantage of that. And then lastly, I'm happy to say that we were one of the recipients of the Stronger Connections grant that we applied for. So we were awarded $32,962. Our specific district application sought to address the mental health of our overall school community through an assortment of speakers, community nights that we plan on holding, such as a mental health awareness night, where local businesses and organizations may be on hand to provide literature or outsource or outreach services. We're also looking to enhance our efforts at the secondary level with respect to transition programs, while looking for ways to incorporate community organizations. And lastly, looking to expand what's already established at Cork, where they started their families, so looking to expand that to other buildings. So I would like to thank Mr. Riley for his collaboration with me on that grant. We wrote that together. I know he's not here this evening, but I wanted to publicly thank him for his help on that as well.
I recommend approval of the attached agreement and service contract between the Asheville County ESC and the Geneva Area City School District for the DD satellites and building bridges for the 23-24 school year.
So
I'll move.
moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
I was just going to note, this is for our students who attend building bridges at the ESC, as well as our DD units.
Roll call?
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
And Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
I recommend that the board approve the enclosed MOU between Geneva Area City Schools and GATA.
I'll move.
Second.
Discussion?
This is, just so everyone knows, this is for one additional assistant baseball coach and one additional assistant softball coach. I know that the coach provided some information and rationale to the board of why he felt that was needed.
Roll call?
Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
And Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes. The following policies that are listed are an annual review. There's no changes and there's no motion needed. It's required annually to have them reviewed. At this time, we need to select a delegate and an alternate for the Ohio School Boards Association in November. Anybody?
Are you asking for volunteers, Mrs.
Yes,
Ortiz?
I am.
I would like to go.
You would like to go? Okay.
I was sick last year. I had to go home.
Okay.
I drove all the way there and then had to go home.
Well, that's not good.
I know. I would like to go.
Does anybody want to be the alternate? I can be the alternate if you want. No? Okay. Do we need a motion for that?
Yes. We
Okay.
need a motion combined to designate Mrs. Milliken Dixon as the delegate and you as the alternate.
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Oh, my, can I move?
Yes. you can.
All right.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
And Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
I recommend approval for the Geneva High School choir students to travel to Italy in December of '23.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
Has anybody looked at the state of affairs over there right now? I know there's widespread rioting in France right now. Were you in Italy?
I was.
How was it?
It was fine. We were in Rome, so there were no issues at that time.
And the trip isn't until December, so who knows what'll happen between then and now and then, you know?
And how many students are we talking about?
She won't know till it's approved and then she puts it out to see
But
how
I mean
many are
ballpark, is
interested.
it 20, 30, 40?
No.
I would guess probably maybe 25-ish, 30.
She went
I-
3
it's
years ago,
Definitely a ballpark.
4 years ago? When did she go last?
16, 17 is the picture.
16, 17, yeah. Oh, so okay.
That's a lot.
Do we know how many went then?
It was probably about 25, roughly, give or take.
Yeah, I don't know. I can find out though for you, Mr. Arndt, if you'd like.
The only thing that I had to ask, and it's not going to impact my vote, is just about the insurance cost. I know that she put in her packet that they would require insurance for the students, which I think is a great idea, but I guess the information that's in the packet is based on 10 travelers and a cost based on the 10 travelers. So I guess I'd like to get more information from her, and I can always email her, but about that insurance cost, I think is what I'm most interested in, because the paperwork doesn't really reflect accurately how many kids are actually going to go.
Any other discussion?
And she'll be the only teacher going?
No.
No.
When I asked her about the ratio, she said it'd be approximately 6 to 1.
So for every teacher that goes, we have to hire a substitute back here for them while they're gone.
There could be parent chaperones that go as
And there's
well.
only one day of school they're missing,
No, okay, so my question is not
None.
the ratio.
or none. Okay, I apologize. So they're not missing any school.
None is presented.
The
Now,
teachers.
It did say in here that, the dates that she put in that packet were the dates that I think she is hoping to go, but until it was approved, she wasn't gonna look at booking flights. So depending on, I think, when she could get the best cost for flights, if she has to adjust it a day or two, the dates that were on the informational packets that the board received may be adjusted a day or two, but, I mean, that's pretty much the time frame of when they're going. So should they have to back it up due to flights and the kids do miss a day of school, let's say, then potentially, yes, we would have some teachers out, but we won't know how many until we know how many students are going and how many chaperones are needed.
So we're going to have parent chaperones and teacher chaperones?
I can only speculate that, yes, if parents want to go, they could be a chaperone as well.
But we don't, no one knows how many teachers are gonna go.
We do not know at this time, because we don't know how many students are going.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Roll call?
Mrs. Metzler,
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon,
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz,
Yes.
Mr. Arndt,
Yes.
and Ms. Fisher.
Yes.
The treasurer recommends approval to renew the membership with the Ohio Schools Council.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Mrs. Milliken Dixon,
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz.
Yes.
Mr. Arndt,
Yes.
Ms. Fisher,
Yes.
and Mrs. Metzler.
Yes.
The treasurer recommends that the board approve the enclosed resolution pursuant to section 5705.21 of the Ohio Revised Code.
I'll move.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes, this is the second resolution that needs to be passed in order to put a levy, this in particular levy renewal, on the ballot. I distributed to the board the certificate of estimated property tax revenue from the county auditor that has to accompany these resolutions when filed with the Board of Elections. That certificate showed an estimate of $202,000 raised in property tax levy, certified that our total taxable valuation is $400,454,190, and that the .85 mil levy would amount to $17 for each 100,000 of the county auditor's appraised value. It's appraised value, not taxable value, which seems odd because basically 100,000 home value tax at 35,000 after rollback applied would be about $26. So this is all new language that was required by legislation in this past year that has changed the way levies are represented on these certificates and on the ballot. And frankly, many people were opposed to what was going on because it makes it a little more confusing with the change in the language. But it doesn't change what is taxed right now, as Senate Bill 1 attempted to do, and lower the amount of property tax in order to fund a income tax reduction. But basically, it still raises the same amount of money. The $202,000 is a pretty low estimate because this past year, the total tax collections from that levy totaled $214,227.58. Now, that certification wouldn't include any delinquent taxes, so a lot of times that changes the amount that we receive, but that's the combined real estate, rollback, homestead, and other local tax, which would be the manufactured homes tax. And then in addition to that, interest is supposed to be allocated to any balance in your PI fund. So last year, the total raised was $230,923.06. Now, one of the things I think it's important to note that is, since this is a renewal, rollback and homestead continues to apply. But again, a number of years ago, the legislature, in another move to make it more difficult for public school districts to pass levies, eliminated the rollback on new levies, which means that if you have to pass a new levy and put it out there, the taxpayer pays the full amount of the tax. There's no rollback discount that's then reimbursed from the state. So for instance, on that $100,000 home, right now, $2,975 would be the full value on the $35,000 that is taxable. A taxpayer would pay $2,975 on that home if it was a new levy.
$2,975.
$2,975 for the $100,000 home. $29.75
Just want to check where the multiple,
for
the decimal is.
a
Okay.
home value of $100,000, taxable value of $35,000. And the 12.5% rollback on an owner-occupied home would take off $372, so that the taxpayer would be charged $26.03. for a renewal. But a new levy, they cost more because there's no discount on that rollback, and it's not reimbursed, because it's not reimbursed from the state. So they basically just eliminated that as a savings to the state.
But that doesn't affect this because it's a renewal
It's a
levy.
renewal, right. It would affect it if it didn't pass, and then later on, down the road, the board took it out as a new levy.
Okay.
It would be treated different than it currently is treated. I was asked to share some information just about what this permanent improvement levy funds. As the term permanent improvement indicates, it's, this levy is for general ongoing permanent improvements. Permanent improvement is anything that, capital asset that usually is going to last 5 years or more by definition. This past year, it was used to purchase cafeteria chairs for the high school, washer and dryers for the cafeterias at Austenburg and GPS, and a washer for the cafeteria at the high school, tennis posts, nets, center straps, and roll drives, all for the tennis courts. In fiscal year 22, it was used for tennis court repairs. This would be the crack filling and repainting, replacing the tennis court lights, purchasing baseball and softball windscreens, and striping the bus garage parking lot. Again, not too much money was spent the last 2 years because we're actually using ESSER funds for a lot of capital improvements that, you know, if we were doing those, might have come out of the permanent improvement fund or the maintenance levy. In 21, the PI fund was used to take care of the high school curtain wall project because of water leaking up front, and there was a lot of work done up there. Purchasing 2 buses, one with a wheelchair lift. That was $126,660.15, and part of that was funded by a little over $40,000 grant in that first round of bus purchase grants back in 2021. And to install under drains at the tennis courts. In 20, it was used to purchase a stage ramp. Kurzik camera door access was installed. Bus 15 purchased safety restraints. A tennis court backboard was installed. Fencing for the JV baseball and softball fields. And bus garage electrical outlets. In 2019, it was used to, again, repair tennis court. This was the final bill. Purchase a trailer for track and field for storage up at Spire. Purchase a 2020 bus with wheelchair lift. And purchase camera radio for bus. In 2018, repair and resurface tennis courts. And that bill in 2019 was just the final bill on that. Install fencing for the Koval Court. In 2017, purchase equipment for the new bus garage, purchase buses, and actually we had 2 purchases, one that came in late at the beginning of that fiscal year, and another one that was bid at the beginning in September of that fiscal year and then came in before the end. So we had 4 buses actually paid for out of the PI in 2017. Repair tennis court cracks. Kurzik bus garage site improvements. There were a number of, this was finishing up the new bus/maintenance garage addition, improvements to Kurzik, Kurzik remodel upgrades, and the Kurzik bus garage addition. In 2016, purchased a John Deere tractor, a sewer lateral easement, OSFC CFAP adjustment for middle school budget overrun. For the middle school, it was determined that we were slightly over budget on that building, and so we had to use dollars from the PI fund to make up that difference of $35,000. And then Kurzik remodel upgrades. So I gave the board a history that goes back to 2010. I mean, you can look at that, but just to give you an idea of items that have been purchased, again, one of the major things has been to replace and keep up our bus fleet. Those buses that just arrived, 90,000 is covered by 2 grants from the state in the last biennium budget. And the rest of it was going to come out of PI, but we talked at the last meeting of moving that to ESSER funds and talk about future buses. And this might be a good time to bring up when our buses were delivered, the representative from Rush Bus Center shared that they actually have some stock buses available that were part of an Ohio Schools Council bid. The previous item that was approved by the board, you know, we take advantage of a purchasing co-op there. We haven't bought buses through them, but they do an annual bid, and they have, Rush Bus Center has some stock buses left. They may not stack up to our specs completely. There may be some minor changes that would be reviewed by our bus mechanic to see if it's something we might be interested in. But because they're stock buses, it could save the district anywhere from $12,000 to $15,000. You know, I've been told that the cost of buses has risen and is going to be approaching the next, like we just approved at the last meeting, to go out to bid on 2 or more buses. That is still taking a year, according to the rep, as far as expected delivery from when they receive the PO. But those buses could cost upwards of $125,000. Now, we have never paid over $100,000 for buses before. These buses that just came in are $93,000, and that's up from the previous buses that were under $90,000. So the costs have gone up. If we were interested in purchasing the stock buses, it could save the district $12,000 to $15,000 per bus. We'd also see those buses probably by December if we were to order them soon. And these are only going to be available for a limited time, and so if we wanted to do it, we'd have to act fast. So there's a couple things we need to do, but I just wanted to throw that out there for the board's consideration. If anything was done, it'd have to be at a future meeting, but we have some investigation to do first to see whether it's something that we would want to bring in. But these would be international, which is the bulk of our fleet. Obviously, the 2 new buses that were delivered were international. And just a slight correction, the buses that these new buses replaced, there were trade-ins that are gone or will be gone, either through auction. They're on the auction site right now. Mr. Bergard's on vacation, so I haven't gotten any updates on how that auction is going. But if we get a better price through auction, we won't trade them in. If we don't get a better price, we would trade them into Rush Bus Centers. Those buses are gone. The buses, according to the grant, left active service and are designated now as spares, not out of service. They'd still be in service to be used as spares. And it's the trade-ins that are generally out of service and then go away when the new bus comes in. So you understand that the buses that these buses replaced in active service, it's a requirement of the 45,000 grants to remove those 2 buses from active service and designate them as spares. So they're still in the fleet. Out-of-service buses would be unable to use. And like one of the trade-ins was not drivable, bus number 19, I believe. So it is salvage value. The trade-in from Rush Bus Center is $500. It's going to be towed off the lot and just sold for scrap. However it goes, whether it's through auction, whether it's through Rush, or whether we use somebody else if they give us more money than Rush Bus Center.
So the plan is to research the stock buses and see if they would be satisfactory for us, and then come back with a recommendation to the board if they
Yes,
would
if
be.
they're close enough to meeting our specs, and if our new mechanic, who's here today, Tim
Yes.
Sperling, feels that they are a good buy for us, then we might recommend those as opposed to following through with the full bid process.
So
And
he's-
taking advantage, piggybacking on the Ohio Schools Council bid, these buses have already gone through a bid process. Basically almost statewide. There's over 300 districts that are members of the Ohio Schools Council, participate in purchases.
What is so did they give us an idea of how long we would have to make a decision?
That's my question.
We'd have to act fast, is basically what they said. How long that is, I mean, I think we need to find out first and take that time, and he knows, and we'll let him know if we're interested, and then he would hold on to those, and we could move on with our action.
Okay.
Okay.
One of the things that
Tim is looking at is with these buses that would be a little bit less, the specs are slightly different than what we had initially put out when we purchased the 2 buses that we just got in. So just to make sure that whatever those differences are, we would be okay with, or he would be okay with in working on those buses, then if that's a go, then that would kind of be the green light to say, yes, we should probably move forward and take advantage of these.
Because we could use ESSER funds, correct? Any other discussion?
Yes. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Amber.
I just wanted to mention, Mr. Lillie, thank you for giving us this history on the permanent improvement levy expenditures, and I had a chance to take a look at it. Now, the information that you gave tonight verbally was up to date, like including last year. The paperwork that we have started at fiscal year 2019 and went back to 2010. So, from 2019 to 2013, I did some quick addition on it, and on buses and sports transportation for our students, including bus radios and cameras, in that time frame, so 6 fiscal years, we spent $923,330, a direct impact on our students' ability to get to and from school on safe transportation. If I took it all the way back to the 2010 where this list started, it was $1,400,000 and $457,000. So a lot of that permanent improvement levy money goes towards buses and transportation for our students, not including what you gave from 2020 forward. Also, the extracurricular or sports or computer information that was on this, where we talked about tennis court, the basketball court, so directly, again, impacting our students' ability to do their extracurricular activities and sports. We spent over the 2010 to 2019 timeframe $367,129. So, I mean, we've got almost $2 million in the last 10 years or more going directly towards what the students need to do every single day. And I know there has been comments made about not passing levies, and I can listen to and understand and put myself in that position of the people saying that, but at the end of the day, without this money that has been coincidentally around, Mr. Lillie told me, for 64 years, this levy has been active. We really can't afford to not pass a levy that has been around for 64 years, has been grandfathered in to the way that the, I'll say the levy is calculated with the millage, and that we're spending $2 million in less than 10 years directly on our students. So at the end of the day, without this levy, it hurts our students most. So thank you for putting together this information. It shines a bright light on what we use that for.
Mr. Arndt?
I just went down the 13 years that are provided, and 9 of those years, and 2 of those 9 years, we had 2 improvements, but 9 of those years we had improvements and work done to the tennis courts. Do we have like the best tennis courts in the county?
Oh, I don't know that we can say that right now, but due to the location of our courts and many courts in the county, in old lake beds, there's a lot of movement. And so there are constantly a battle with cracks. Whether you're at St. John, whether you're at Lakeside, I mean, we have lake beds between 84 and 20, between 20 and the lake, a mixture of sand, water, and clay, and a lot of movement in there. When we completely redid those tennis courts back in 2002, so that basically replaced what was built in 1974, they were completely dug up. We tried to put a geogrid in there that was supposed to hopefully absorb some of that movement. But, I mean, I've been told by the tennis court company that we used in the past, it's impossible to stop the cracks. So there's always going to be work on filling cracks. You see that sometimes that work was $4,500, $6,000, not always a high amount. The higher amount is when we repair the cracks and have the entire court surface painted, repainted, which has to be done, I don't know, maybe every 6 to 7 years. We started cleaning the courts last year. They hadn't done that for a little while. They should be like power washed once every 2 years to help get dirt and grime off that makes your paint job last longer. But it's always going to be a battle with cracks, and there's, it's just impossible to stop.
Okay, thank you.
This is off budget topic, but could we put them somewhere else? Somewhere that they don't cost that much to maintain? No. I don't know where they are even.
They're at the middle school.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Back there.
Just curious.
And so, I mean, all of our buildings except Cork and Osterberg are in lake beds.
Yeah, okay.
Right? So whether you built
Yeah.
it at the high school, it's in
Okay.
lake bed, there's movement.
Okay.
Middle
right.
school, GPS.
I was just curious.
there's
Thank you.
movement.
Also, I'd like to very much know what all the comments are, and so I'd like you to wait until you can make them so that I can hear them. Thank you.
Roll call?
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mr. Arndt?
Yes,
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
And Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
The treasurer recommends that a student activity account be established for the class of 2030.
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Roll call?
Mr. Arndt?
yes,
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
And Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
I do have a question, though. I apologize. Mr. Lillie, so when we start this 2030 account, does that mean we just start a line item, or do we put money in there
We
to start them
a
off?
line item. I mean, student activity accounts.
That's where the
involve
money all comes from.
fundraising and
Okay. Thank you.
so on, so.
The treasurer recommends that the following fund to be appropriated according to the adopted budget.
So moved.
second,
Discussion? Roll call?
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
And Mr. Arndt?
yes,
I recommend that the employment effective date for the 219-day contract of Michelle R. Papick be changed from September 1st to July 25th.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
I have a question. So this is Laura Jones's replacement, right, Michelle? Right? So she's just starting earlier so that they can overlap and Laura can train her, is that correct?
So twofold, yes. One is to provide a transition period, and then July 25th, there is a specific training that she would need to attend.
I see. Thank you.
Roll call?
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mr. Arndt?
yes,
And Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Is there a recommend? So just read that the way it's written?
Administrative
Okay.
contract change for.
Administrative change of contract effective July 1st to be paid according to the adopted administrative contract guidelines.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mr. Arndt?
yes,
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
And Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
Administrative change of contract effective July 1st to be paid using the four-factor formula in the administrative contract guidelines.
move,
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mr. Arndt?
yes,
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
And Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
I recommend that the following administrators be hired on a 2-year contract to be paid according to the adopted administrative contract guidelines.
a move,
Second.
Discussion?
So Josh is here this evening, if he would like to stand for a moment.
Hi, Josh.
Josh will be the new high school assistant principal. He comes with 16 years' experience as an educator, with the past being at Garfield Heights as a music teacher. He received his bachelor's degree from Kent State University in music education and a master's in school counseling from Concordia. He has served on BLT and PBIS committees, as well as he was the middle school to high school transition camp director, just to name a few.
welcome aboard,
Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you.
Roll call?
Mr. Arndt?
yes,
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
And Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes. I recommend the following personnel actions for the 2023-24 contract year.
So moved.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
I just wanted to note that numerous of these individuals, either that were hired at last month's board meeting who were unable to be here due to conflicts of the date, are here this evening, as well as some of the individuals that are on tonight's agenda are here. So in lieu of me going through the whole list, if you wouldn't mind just standing and quickly introducing yourself and your new position in the district, that would be wonderful.
Michael King, I'm very pleased to be here as a new high school principal. I've had family in Geneva for decades. Happy to be here.
Thank you. Welcome. Welcome. Welcome.
Who is she?
Welcome. Welcome.
Thank you.
Is that everybody? Yes.
Welcome,
Thank you
everybody.
all.
Yes. Roll call, please.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
And Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
Our next item on the agenda is the hearing of the public. The board has adopted bylaw 169.1 to provide for 30 minutes of public participation at a regular meeting of the board. Each statement made by a participant shall be limited to 5 minutes in duration, and no participant may speak more than once on the same topic unless all others who wish to speak on that topic have been heard. All participants are expected to comply with the standards set forth in the board policy manual with regard to public comment. We will now begin the 30-minute period of public participation for tonight's meeting. Amber, are you?
Yes.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Jennifer Thompson. I don't know. Can you hear me?
Can you, it's, the light's on, maybe tip it up. There you go.
Jennifer Thompson,
There you go.
3215 South Myers, Geneva. The first thing I'd like to mention is something that's pretty important to my family. I don't know if community counseling is going to have a therapist in the schools, specifically the high school. Some of you know, some of you don't. We have foster kids in our home who have come from very difficult backgrounds. Their family pride case manager was in our home today, and I asked her if she would start seeing our kids when school started at school, because that's where she normally sees them. It's one-on-one. They get to speak openly, not that they can't in front of us, but if you've been in a difficult background, you know it's much easier to speak to somebody like that one-on-one. She told me that it will take up to a month to get into our schools because we are the most difficult school to get into. There is pushback, mostly from the middle school secretary. I won't have them in middle school. They'll both be at the high school. What can we do to get these people into our schools faster? This is important. This is mental health awareness that you have all said is very important. This should start before the school starts. Their background should be run. They should be in our schools the day our students are in school. I have a kid coming from the middle school. He's in the behavioral class. He needs her. He needs her. And he needs her when school begins, not a month later. It's very important. Can we figure that out? It's the most important thing to me, other than anything else I'm going to say to you. The next thing, why can't we proof a public document before it's released? We have already taken public speaking from twice. Now it's once. It just needs proved. That's simple. Cordova went from a bus driver to a secretary, so we are down another bus driver. We can't afford to lose bus drivers, even if they want to switch positions. I'm sorry to any bus driver out there. I love Karen Cordova. We need our bus drivers to remain bus drivers. The legislative report, I am interested in that information that comes to us, but when you're up here just like,
I know.
not shouting things to us, but you're just shooting them off, and we're not allowed to ask questions at that time, and it's really hard to just can we get that printed by chance?
Absolutely.
That's like set with these papers. Can we
Absolutely.
have a printout? That'd be very
Eric
helpful.
prints it in the Gazette.
Right, but I'm here listening to you. If I could read it
Oh, I
as
see
I'm
what you're
reading
saying. Ahead of
this, can we have a printout up front?
Yeah.
Our comments about the tennis courts, you're on our Board of Education and you don't even know where our tennis courts are.
I don't play tennis. What, really?
Yes,
I don't-
really. And the last thing,
I have to
the
know
levy.
where everything, oh my God.
The levy.
Okay.
You want to tell us, we've used this much for busing, we've used this much for the students, we've used this much for the students. The busing, my child in 4th grade was going on a field trip. The teachers had to send something out that said, hey, we might have to cancel as late as the morning of this field trip because we don't know if we'll have a bus. You want us to renew a 60-some-year-old levy. Renew it, it's already coming out of your taxes. It's only $30. Take $1 million off your building. I'll vote for that levy. I'll renew it.
Chloe Davidson, 1737 Roxbury Drive. I just wanted to say thank you for approving our trip to Italy tonight. As an upcoming senior, it means a lot. And I know you guys don't hear thank you that often, so I wanted to make sure it was said.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jen Quirk, 299 West Main in Geneva. So I'm up here tonight because I'm concerned. One meeting later, we're losing another principal. I'm curious, are we stopping and asking our principals and teachers how they are? Now, as a teacher, I can say the school I came from, they didn't, and that was hard. Like, we focus on our kids' mental health, and definitely that's important to focus on the students, but are we stopping and asking our teachers what's going on? Like, you know, why are we all leaving? Why are the principals leaving? Like, are we checking on their mental being? My aunt she retired for the Board of Elections, and she worked for like a lot of years, I don't know, 30-some years. So she knows Ms. Fisher, because Ms. Fisher helps. And I saw her for dinner, and we spoke, and we were talking about Geneva schools. And she told me that Ms. Fisher told her that you, Dr. Treharn, want teachers and principals to change their ways, and that's it. And teachers and principals aren't liking that, and so that's why they're leaving. Now, I don't know if there's truth to that. You know, I don't know. But I know that, you know, I was talking to someone else, and they mentioned how Geneva kind of has like an old-fashioned way that the teachers follow and that they know and that they've been doing for years and years, and it's worked. And that's why Geneva had been so successful, and why our schools were, everybody wanted to be here, and now if we're asking them to change something that, like, I get as a teacher why we have to make minor changes, but if what they were doing was working, then why are we having to fix it? Like, we don't have to be like Grand Valley or like Jefferson or like Ashtabula. Let's be Geneva and keep, you know, our teachers happy and our administrators happy, because now we have all these other changes coming on where people can take their kids elsewhere, and that's really sad. That really definitely is going to affect, you know, our school district. It's interesting to me that my 11-year-old, he's super independent and was, excuse my words, like hell-bent on getting a job. So we live near town, so he went to all the little shops and like begged for a job. Now that's not because I want him to work, you know what I mean? But like, he wants to help. He doesn't want to just sit around, and he doesn't sit inside and play on technology. Anyways, so one of the local businesses gave him a job, and he's really not doing too much, helping with cleaning and stuff. But he comes home like every day, like so excited. Like, and he gets up in the morning, like so excited. And like this morning he got up and he's like, Mom, I gotta go to work. And I said, okay, but it's only 9 o'clock and they open at 10. And he said, no, they need me an hour early. And I said, okay, you know. So I checked on him through the day. Now, that made me think of, as an adult, like as a teacher, as a person who works, that when we go to a place that we love, when we go to a job that we love, we don't even realize we're working. Like, it doesn't feel like a job. So I'm not sure what's going on in Geneva in the schools, because I'm not a teacher here, but I can see it in the teachers' faces, and I can see it in the principals' faces when I see them in passing, or if they come to the winery, or I see them at Giant Eagle, or wherever. And they're just not happy. So the best way we can keep them is by keeping them happy. So just checking on them and asking, like, what can we do to help you feel better or make things better for you? Because then now we have this good old backpack bill, HB 11, and now everyone can take their child wherever they want to. They can take them to private schools, and it's not a cost to them. And I can say, coming from a private school as a teacher, the grass is not greener there. Like, my son had the worst experience. I didn't have a great experience, and I'm not knocking it. I'm sure it's a good school. However, it's not Geneva. It's not Geneva. It's not Geneva. Like, that's all I'm gonna say. So we've got to work together. We've got to work together to keep our teachers happy and our principals happy and our families happy and our kids happy, so they're staying at Geneva and not going elsewhere. Thank you.
Katie Sunderland, 6416 North Ridge Road West, Geneva. I was actually up here a year ago this month questioning why at the middle school that we had no extracurricular activities that was not a sport. My daughter is coming up to the middle school this year. My son's going into 8th. Neither of them are very big sports kids. But my son wanted to do yearbook, a robotics club, a STEM club. There's a ton of things the kids who don't play sports would be interested in. But I've heard nothing of the sort. And now you're up here asking us, whether it's a renewal or not, to continue to give you money, when the first levy that our community passed for you has wheeled us very little. Yes, we got busing back, but there was many times that I had to leave work early to go pick my daughter up from Cork because she had no bus, and my husband works out of town, and my family lives an hour away. So I had to leave my own job. I work for the district. And at the time I was a tutor, so it wasn't really that big of a deal. But this year I will be taking on a 3rd grade classroom. And granted, she's at the middle school, so the problem is not going to be as severe, but if I was a teacher, I would have had to leave 15, 20 minutes early to go pick up my child. Otherwise, she would have been there till like 4 o'clock by the time I could have gotten there afterwards. But at the end of the day, myself and multiple people told you that if you don't start using these money for our students, you are not going to pass another levy. And it doesn't matter that in the years past you used this money for our students. The fact of the matter is we have a new levy, and nobody's seeing getting used as a positive change for Geneva. We are not making our students competitive if they want to go to college, because these extracurriculars, the extra classes that all these other districts offers, puts them a step ahead of other candidates. We cannot do that for our students right now. As much as I hate to say it, your renewal is not going to get passed. This community has a history of not passing levies, and it's even worse now because we are not seeing the fruits of the labor for the last levy. Thank you.
Brock Pearson, 106 Elm Street. I just wanted to make a few notes today. First, I did want to thank you for 2 very noticeable things. One, looked up the background on your guys' new hires, including Mr. King, and you guys, it's very awesome to see you here, especially from the places that you came for. So although I have a slew of complaints, people with actual certifications are going to be the solution to this problem, so please do not take it a reflection of this district. 2, I really like the fact you finally replaced the lights that someone asked you about probably 10 or 12 months ago. Really awesome. Now, to get into kind of what I wanted to talk about, I saw a celebration of a grant today. It's amazing. Grant writing is a huge asset to the district, including raising capital. And why it's so tough is you have to hit these unknown parameters. So that is an amazing aspect of this. However, when we are balancing ledgers, as we're doing right now, and trust me, I understand the $1.8 million, or whatever it is now, comes out of a specified building fund. I get that. I promise you guys that. I understand it. I'm not misconstruing it. That doesn't matter to the public at large, because whether it's in a designated account or not, it looks extremely problematic on paper. We're talking about community building and things like, parent outreach. We have Jeans Day as a reward for teachers. Is that really appealing to you guys? Probably not. And the other thing that I have a huge issue with is the helmet challenge is still not there. Also, the helmets are missing from certain local businesses. You probably should check the Circle K's and stuff, because some of them quite literally are missing. It's been like a year and a half now. Two, I'm really frustrated to hear that the ESC is good enough for building bridges, but when you guys were faced with the strike that you think we're hyper-focused on, even though it's literally the least of our problems now, you guys couldn't manage to muster up an agreement then that could have stopped the strike, instead spending $20,000 on a core curriculum that now you will not use. I also don't like that we mentioned 4 to 6 policy proposals again. Last time I spoke about this, you guys kind of looked at me like you were confused. We say we're going to make amendments to policies. I get it. You don't want to print out 40 pages and hand them out. I don't want it either. But if you could even just say these are the sections that are changing, or maybe you guys give minutes.
There were no changes to these policies.
I thought that you don't engage with the public as a bylaw of the board policy. I want to make sure you're adhering to the rules. We don't have respect for the law here, and I just want to be really clear. At one time I was ignored so we could read Robert's Rules of Orders. This is the 12th edition, non-annotated, right? So this is the full #1 version. It's not the little one with author notes written in it. I have no idea how this board policies, revisions, and bylaws come from this book, because they don't. They just don't. So it's even more ironic that that's the conversation that we're having. So we don't have respect for the law. We don't have respect for the format, really the community, the teachers. We can break the bylaws when it's cool to grab some cred to defeat the people who dare give you public input. I understand that OSBA gets you guys riled up because you want to shut down what you see as radicalization across the state. Trust me, I read it, I research it, I interact with it daily. People are asking you if there are litter boxes in the schools. You have bigger problems to solve. I get it. That's not what I'm talking about when I'm up here. I'm even more frustrated that you guys have been asking some of my friends to run for school board, but not very well, because they just run to us and say it's really strange. I had Rick Arndt and Terri Treharn ask me if I could run for school board. Now, that might not cross any ethical violations, but I guess I'm just kind of confused because, Ms. Fisher, you spoke very eloquently once about how this is not the best spot to be, but I saw that on the 28th of June you pulled a petition again. So I guess I'm just not understanding where these words, where this direction of the board is, besides just eroding democracy, splitting the vote enough to where there is no majority, and then hoping that everyone stops paying attention to the school board again. You guys will successfully kill a 64-year levy if you keep this up. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jack Dupsky. I live at 142 Lockwood Street, Geneva, Ohio. I have a question, Mrs. Dixon. You were talking about those new House bills, and there was something in there about cash options for private entities,
Yes.
excluded though. I would seriously hope that regardless of that House bill, you'll revisit that and make a cash option optional. We have a lot of grandparents that want to go to football games that don't have computers, that aren't tech savvy enough to get on their smartphone and make the purchase prior to the game. And it creates a difficulty for them. And then on top of it, you got to pay a surcharge when I could just give you the $8 at the door and save the surcharge. So please take that into consideration. I think that would be a wonderful gesture to our seniors in the community that want to attend sporting events at the Spire, because they're getting enough of our money as it is. I'm sad that we lost Mrs. Berzanko as our principal. Amy, I've been around a long time. I've fathered 4 kids. I've raised 6 kids. I've interacted with a lot of principals, and I'd have to say Amy Berzanko, hands down, is the best principal that compared to anybody I've ever had as a student or any of my kids have had. I don't like this constant. Kids need consistency. Kids need love, security, and consistency. And in the last 2 years, there's no the only thing consistent in this district is that we're consistently inconsistent. Mr. Arndt brought up a valid point about the Italy trip. You're worried about paying substitutes. That is a great concern, although I want that trip to go full forth. If you're worried about paying substitutes, bring Matt Deering back to work and quit paying the sub that runs his class to sit in there and basically babysit in such an important class. you had a beautiful heart. You pulling the strings of our heart for about the levy and how the kids need it and how, you know, we want to put the kids first. I'm here to tell you, we've been watching you the last 2 years. There's a lot of things you could have been doing to put the kids first other than asking us to renew a 64-year-old levy. We told you back in October of 2021, when you forced the teachers on strike, we will never support another levy as long as Dr. Treharn is in reign of this district. And these board members sitting up there. Lady behind me brought up something about what's wrong with our teachers. Well, I talk to a lot of the teachers. You know, my mouth never shuts up here or outside. I talk. I like to get to know people. I'll tell you what's wrong with our teachers. Right there, Terri Treharn. She's such a heavy burden on our teachers. The 4 principals that have left this year, I think it's been 5 in 2 years. We're on our 3rd maintenance supervisor since her inception. The burden that she has placed upon our kids and our community is so heavy, it would give the Jolly Green Giant a hernia. I'm here to tell you. You're not going to pass a levy. Not until you start running the school district like we want it ran. We're the taxpayers. We've been talking to you for over 2 years now. This school district has become a revolving door for principals, supervisors, teachers, and now you're going to come to us and try to tug on our heartstrings about a levy that needs replaced for the kids? Hey, nice try, but it's not going to work. Actions speak louder than words, and this board's action the last 2 years, sticking their heads in the sand and supporting Dr. Treharn's tyranny, is going to cost you this levy. So think long and hard tonight when you go to bed. Is she worth losing? I hear you pulled another petition, but yet the Star Beacon quoted you about 3 or 4 months ago. You got up there and you told the public how much you hate your job. You want us to vote for you? I'll bring the article from the Star Beacon if you want to debate me on that. Well, I'll bring it in August. You read a letter. It has started out with the passing. One of the saddest times was the passing of your husband. My sympathies to you. And then you went into how much you hate your job as a school board member now. So good luck with your. I'm glad you're running because we're gonna affect change. We tried to affect change with you guys in place. You won't listen to us. You bury your heads in the sand. We're gonna affect change. Good luck to the new principals. You're from Garfield Heights? I was a former Bulldog till 1979. So I wish you guys well. I hope you stay, but you're going to need a lot of luck.
That time.
Good luck.
Hello, Allie Lechner, Leighner. I live at 1602 State Route 307. I just wanted to say thank you for the lights. I've really hoped for the lights like all school year long. I'm in theater, and it looked really crappy. So thank you for the new lights. It looks absolutely amazing. I'm very excited for the next show so that people can be able to see. I'm extremely excited. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Are there any board reports tonight?
Yeah, I have a couple things I'd like to talk about. Jack, the cash option legislation, that just requires districts to do it. So it doesn't have any impact on whether or not we're going to. We have to now, so. Yes. No, wait a minute. I apologize. It's in the new budget. Effective in October, that we must offer the cash option. The exemption would apply to us. So, but I'm saying it doesn't have anything to do with whether or not we'll actually do that. We're not there yet, is what I'm saying. Yeah. No, I do. I have a mother who wants to come to things too. I get it. Yeah, I get it. Mental health for teachers. Ms. Cork mentioned some mental health for teachers, and I've talked about this with the teachers when I go to the schools. about are they accessing what they do have and what can we do to get more of it. I do know that the teachers' health insurance does cover mental health counseling the same way it does any other doctor. So they would just have to pay whatever their copay is. And so I've encouraged those that are struggling to pursue that. And we are still pursuing, or I am still pursuing ways to get more of that support in here for teachers as well. So thank you for that. Okay, I think I'm probably done. If you have any specific questions, can you send me emails so that I can respond to you? I do want to answer questions. It's just a difficult format to do this in like this. And it's not a character flaw that I don't play or watch tennis. So I apologize for not knowing where everything is in the districts and in the buildings. I think, Ms. Thompson, the community counseling counselors in the schools also we're working on. We're working with community counseling. I just spoke with someone over there. I haven't updated Dr. Treharn or the board yet about what we can do to do exactly that. Get more counselors in the schools. Right. Okay. Okay. Can you shoot me an email so I have a way to contact you? Thank you. I'm sorry. Who was that? Oh, that was you. Okay. And I'll work on printing out the legislative report. Sometimes I'm still working on it this day to make sure that it's up to date, but I'll work on that for y'all. And thank you. That's all I have.
I recommend the board hold an executive session for the purpose of considering the appointment, employment, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee or official.
So moved.
Roll call.
I didn't hear a second.
Amber.
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
And Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
We going to the media center? That's what we always do now. We just assume that's true.